Hi guys, if you're watching this, it's because I'm still away and haven't been able to go through this with you in person. So in yesterday's lesson, you should have been doing a problem solving the ant problem, going around the can or going from one side of the room to the other. Hopefully, you found those challenging enough. In today's lesson, and you'll have this lesson Thursday and one lesson next week to do this. We're going to have a look at a sort of a bit more of a longer form problem solving task called frogs. Now, you should receive a physical copy of this, and you're to work through that physical copy. Um, but I wanted to take a moment to explain to you what the procedure is. So we've got this idea here where we've got a pond, and across the pond are a bunch of lily pads, and there's always an empty lily pad in the middle. And you need to get the frogs from one side of the pond to the other. And there's only two moves the frogs can make. They can either step onto the next lily pad. So, for example, this green frog could go here, or this pink frog could go there. Um, or if there's a spare spot past the frog, then you can jump over. So, if this pink frog was here, then this green one could jump over onto this spot here. So, they're the two possible moves. And your job is to work out the minimum number of moves it would take for all the frogs to make their way to the other side of the pond. And it's up to you how you do it. Most students will do it by drawing a little model of the lily pad scenario. So you can see here, for example, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spots. And then they'll put frogs on one side and frogs on the other side. And you should have access to a whole bunch of counters. So you get 3 of one color and 3 of another color, and then you sort of act it out. I've got this thing online. I don't want you to use this website online because I want you to um, do it physically. There's something about doing it physically which is really helpful, I find. But to sort of show you what I mean, probably the best thing to do would be to start with this easiest scenario and get a feel for it. So build your understanding up. So, for example, in the easiest scenario, we've got 3 lily pads. One has, in this case, a blue frog. The other side has the green frog, and there's an empty one in the middle. And then I can slide this frog over here, and then this frog can jump into that spot, and then this frog can step over here, and we're done. And then add another couple of frogs on. So now you've got 2 frogs on one side, 2 frogs on the other, and a blank one in the middle, and do the same sort of thing. And you might get stuck, and that's okay. So you can move that frog and then move that frog, but then you're stuck. So because this green frog can't jump over 2, can only jump over 1. So you'd reset all the counters and then you try again until you can get a sense of what would work. Okay, so that's basically all you have to do. And I'm stuck now. See, so that's basically all you have to do. And you need to keep a track of how many moves it takes for you to get the frogs all the way from one side to the other. I'll just switch back to here so I can show you what I mean. We can see here that this little table here says, well, how many frogs have you got on each side? So one frog, that would be one green, one pink. 2 would be 2 green, 2 pink, etc. And how many moves does it take? So what you'll do, hopefully, is you'll get a sense of a pattern as you fill these in. I would not go past doing 4 physically. Okay, so once you've got a number for 1, 2, 3, and 4, or even just 1, 2, 3, see if you can use pattern matching to work out how many moves it would take for 4, 5, 6, and 7. Certainly, if you've got the first 4, you should be able to figure it out. There's a couple of ways of figuring it out. You might be able to see how the number that appears down here matches the number up here, or you might see a pattern in how these numbers are increasing, and there is definitely a pattern. So that would be the first goal, would be to see whether you can act it out using counters and and drawing out the lily pads or whatever, acting it out and seeing whether you can figure out the moves for 1, 2, and 3. Now, if I'm not around, it means that you're probably going to have to check with each other and see whether you're getting them right or not. But yeah, get those right, and then see whether you can work out the pattern as you go along. This next one is actually really hard. It's probably one of the hardest bits of the whole um, thing to get right. Is there a systematic way of moving the frogs? Describe it in plain English so that someone else could use it. Now, this isn't just a matter of talking about if I add this number of moves to this frog, then I'll get this. I'll get the number of moves for this frog, that kind of thing. It's actually explaining there's a pattern in the steps and the leaps. Remember, the frog can do a step to a next lily pad or frog leap over. So there's a pattern to the steps and the leaps. And what you have to do is you have to work out what that pattern is. To start with, you might describe the pattern or just describe step by step, like on a rough piece of paper, not here. On a rough piece of paper, describe the steps for moving 2 frogs on both sides to either side. And then maybe describe it for 3 frogs on either side. What are you doing? What are you adding to the instructions in order to go from 2 to 3 frogs? Because what you have to do here is generalize your instructions. It's not easy. Work at it. It's satisfying when you get it, but it is tough. Don't think you can just write it down and you're done. It'll involve some sort of looping. For those of you who are used to coding would understand about looping through the instructions to say repeat these 2 steps until that kind of thing. Okay, it is not easy, so persevere. How do you go from instructing how to move 2 frogs or 3 frogs to how do I generalize it so that I could be talking about any number of frogs? How do I talk about um, the patterns of steps and leaps in a general way so that someone could do it? A really, really good way to work out whether your instructions are working or not is give your instruction to someone else or the teacher taking the lesson if they're happy to do so, and get them to follow your instructions and see whether they can figure it out. Don't be upset if you don't get through it in this lesson. I definitely had people still working on it in Thursday's lesson to get it right before they moved on to the rest of the sheet. Okay, I think that'll do. That's probably me over talking it, but hopefully that's enough for you to have a sense of what you need to do. So grab some counters and get stuck into it. And hopefully I'll see you Thursday.